On the platform, let's move on now to a story. And gosh, has it been a week? Has it been a week for people signing letters about how upset they might be about proposed government policies or existing government policies? We had supposed church leaders, though an analysis of the 500 people on the letter put out by basically an activist left-wing organisation or charity shows a lot of them weren't leaders. They are saying the Treaty Principles Bill, which they haven't even seen yet, was a terrible thing. It was racist and would drag New Zealand back into colonial times of division. And I think there was some cynicism, though all the lefties said, oh, we love that letter, it's fantastic. And then we had a letter that was quite different from a group of 40 to 50 former absolutely elite top athletes, many of them, I think a majority of them Olympians, talking about the current policy settings from Sport New Zealand as regards diversity in sport. And let's not mess around or dress it up, whether or not blokes can play sport against women at what is called euphemistically community level. And of course, community level means everything up to but not including representing your nation internationally. So that's regionals, everything. It's not like community sport is a game of touch football in the weekend with some of your mates. And these amazing people all signed a letter saying we've got to put fairness and safety into the equation, the safety of women, particularly, I would say, in team sports. That letter has been presented. We had Dave Gerard on yesterday, and it appears that Chris Bishop, the Minister of Sport, is listening. He says he may have been misled by his officials at the Sports Foundation as to what is in the current policy, and he hears the concerns of the group that organised the letter. And we talked to Dave Gerard yesterday, and I thought to myself, that's a bit off, actually, because Dave's a bloke. And this is really an issue about women in sport and fairness towards women and safety towards women. So I went down the list, and I've talked to this person before, and they're a person I got great respect for. So we're joined now from Boulder, Colorado, by New Zealand Olympian and marathon legend Lorraine Moller. Lorraine, lovely to see you again. Welcome back to the platform.
Thank you very much, Sean. Thanks for having me on.
All right. Look, I first wanted to ask at an emotional level, as an Olympian, presumably you watch the Olympics every time they're on, right? You're like a fan of the competition and the whole thing around it. What do you, as a former competitor and in athletics, feel when you see men competing against women and pretending they're women?
Oh, I think it's horrible. It goes against everything that we learned in sport that about fairness, which was sort of underscored. You know, you had to be a good sport. And we fought pretty hard in our day to get parity in women's events. And that was so that we had our own prizes, our own media, our own coverage, to be recognised for our performance and not get lost in the middle of a men's event. And, you know, that discouraged a lot of women from even doing sport. And we finally got to the point, I think in 2000, where they finally had parity in all events in the Olympics, at the Sydney Olympics.
What is your definition of parity?
The same events for women as for men.
Men, okay.
Much.
So basically there was a women's division and a men's division.
Yes.
And do you say that transgender athletes or self-identifying athletes destroy that parity, destroy that fairness?
Oh, absolutely. It's opened the back door to anybody who just wants to win. So they can get in with women. You can get a B-grade man, go into a women's event and take all the prizes.
Yeah.
It's absolutely unfair. It undoes everything that we fought for in our day. And so, you know, we can't rest. It's like somebody opened the back door and said, okay, here you go.
So you had no problem signing that letter?
Oh, no, I have been 100% with it all the way.
Lorraine, I was thinking about this last night. How on earth did this start? I mean, poor old Dave Gerrard, I spoke to him yesterday. He said, well, now the science is in, we can say definitively that men have, a physical advantage if they've been through puberty. All these studies prove it. To be honest, I don't think you needed the studies.
No.
It sticks out like dog's bollocks that this is unfair and stupid and, in fact, a little crazy, a little insane. So when and where and how was this allowed to get to this stage?
Yeah, when I was competing, we had to have a chromosome test, and it was a skin scraping of the cheek.
Yeah.
And then they determined whether you were XX or XY.
So that was like 40 years ago, right? That was back in the 80s.
Yeah, but
80s, 90s?
I think it was, it was scrapped in the late 90s, I think.
Why?
Caster Semenya, the 800-metre runner, was one of the key athletes who was a transgender, a real... She had testosterone, she had testes, but presented as a female. Yeah. So, but they scrapped the test, and I think it actually worked really well because it sorted 99.94% of the people into their categories, and there was a very small percentage, like Caster Semenya, who were in between. Yeah. The trouble is when you start to go and cater to that very small percentage of people, now you're compromising the 50% of the population, which the women need to be considered. We need to have our own sport and our own category, and you can't have women boxing and sprinting and boxing and triathlon in New Zealand mixing the men and the women. It just doesn't work. It's
Lorraine,
crazy.
I still wonder, because it is such common sense. What you're saying makes perfect sense. There must have been a political movement or a group of people who have promoted the madness. Do we know who they are?
I don't know, because what's happened is we've had some of these transgender athletes, men who've declared themselves as women, who are still every bit a man. They haven't even undergone any treatment. Yeah. They're not committed to anything else other than probably being at the front of the group. And where they came from, I don't know. In New Zealand, we had Laurel Hubbard in the weightlifting.
Yeah.
But Laurel Hubbard...
I can't help but think there, given that Laurel was part of the Hubbard's empire, that our sports organisations perhaps received quite generous donations from the Hubbard family, and that was quite helpful.